Martinsville just delivered two completely different emotional experiences in one race weekend, and both of them are worth breaking. One was the kind of moment that leaves you staring at the screen in disbelief, and the other was the kind that reminds you why this sport means so much to so many. What makes it even more remarkable is that both stories happened on the same short track, just hours apart. If you're a real NASCAR fan, you already know that days like this can shift momentum, change entire season, and even redefine how we look at certain drivers going forward. The trouble started on lap 324 during a late restart at Martinsville Speedway, when Bubba Wallace made aggressive contact with Carson Hocevar's number 77 Chevrolet heading into turn 3, and it was not just a single note. Wallace hit the car twice and then drove straight through it, triggering a multi-car pileup that spread all the way down the front stretch and wiped out a significant portion of the field in a matter of seconds. Looking at the replay, Hocevar had not done anything that clearly called for that level of retaliation. The two had gone 3 wide into turn 1 earlier in the race, and Wallace appeared to carry that frustration all the way into the restart. Speaking after the race, Wallace acknowledged that he misjudged the corner and did not intend to spin Hocevar out, but the damage was already done. Hocevar somehow recovered well enough to finish 15th, which is genuinely impressive given what he had just been through. But Wallace was not nearly as fortunate. His car was destroyed, and he wound up classified 36th with a D. That result made it back-to-back finishes of 34th or worse, and dropped him all the way from second in the championship standings down to 11th. Just a few races earlier, he had looked like a genuine title contender, and now the momentum has completely reversed. Wallace spoke openly after the race about how disappointing Sunday was, especially given how promising the car had looked throughout practice, and it is a familiar and frustrating pattern. Strong pace early in the weekend that simply does not hold up when the race goes the full distance. With Easter approaching and Bristol Motor Speedway next on the schedule for April 12th, this team will need to use the brake wisely and come back mentally reset and ready to go. Meanwhile, at the complete opposite end of the emotional dial, Chase Elliott delivered something genuinely special. His first win of the 2026 season and the 22nd victory of his Cup Series career. This win was not handed to him by any means. Elliott started 10th and spent much of the afternoon running outside the top 5, while Denny Hamlin put on an absolute clinic up front, leading the majority of the first 317 laps from the pole position and looking every bit like the driver who was going to take the checkered flag. But everything changed when crew chief Alan Gustafson made an early pit call on lap 312, a calculated gamble that put Elliott in prime position when the next caution flag flew. On a restart, Ross Chastain briefly held the lead after staying out, but Elliott worked past him and controlled the front for the final 69 laps, eventually crossing the line ahead of Hamlin by just over half a second, with Joey Logano finishing 3rd, followed by Ty Gibbs and William Byron rounding out the top 5. The win carried extra meaning beyond just the trophy, because it came almost exactly 11 years after Elliott's very first Cup Series, a race at this same Martinsville track where he finished 38th while Hamlin took the win. And to beat Hamlin at that exact same venue more than a decade later is the kind of full-circle moment that only this sport can produce. Gustafson's pit strategy had drawn its share of criticism in the past, but on this afternoon, it was validated at precisely the right moment, which is something team owner Rick Hendrick, who had called Gustafson that very morning to remind him that this is a marathon and not a sprint, will certainly appreciate. Away from the on-track action, Tyler Reddick has been one of the standout performers of the early 2026 season, and with his contract situation at 2311 Racing drawing increasing attention around the paddock, team co-owner Denny Hamlin indicated that a new deal is already being worked. NASCAR also released the list of 15 nominees for the 2027 Hall of Fame class, which includes notable names such as Kevin Harvick, Jeff Burton, and Greg Biffle, meaning that both the future and the legacy of the sport are very much in the spotlight at the same time. One race, two completely different stories. one that could define a very difficult stretch ahead for a driver who was flying high a few weeks ago, and another that might be exactly the spark needed to launch a serious championship. That is what short track racing does. It compresses everything, raises every stake, and forces the truth out in the Bristol is next. And with everything that unfolded at Martinsville, the pressure heading into that race just got a whole lot more interesting.